Good evening and thank you for joining us. My name is Mureithi and today I am joined by my good friend. Good evening and thank you for joining us. My name is Mureithi and today I am joined by my good friend Pst M to have a discussion on money. Pst M, karibu sana.
Asante.
Karibu to Audacious Vybe. We did a series on Audacious Influencers, the Game of Thrones. It's a series on money. And we decided to follow it up with a conversation on money. So what I'm doing is just getting a few of my friends to have this conversation on money. So, Pasi, do you need introduction? You can just say something about you for the viewers in where? Maybe Switzerland who haven't heard about you.
All right. My name is Mureithi Wanjau, or Pst M as called by many, and I'm the pastor of Mavuno Church. I'm also a father of 3 and husband of 1 wife. And apart from that, I have many other interests: leadership development. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, and a few other things that I do. Yeah. But yeah, more than that, I love Jesus, and I am 100% surrendered to serving Him in my generation.
Yeah. Great. Today you're hosting us.
Yes.
This is Isaac House. It's one of the things that you do apart from just being a pastor.
Yes.
Tell us about this place.
It's an 11-bedroom guest house out in Lukenya, just next to the Lukenya Hills, on the Daystar Road near Daystar University. And it's a beautiful place for relaxation, for retreats, for guests. We typically will host families that will come here for family retreat or birthdays. And we also host a lot of corporates and companies that come here for executive retreats. And it's one of the ways we support ourselves in ministry with my wife.
Yeah, it's a really amazing place. If you want a place to just come and relax and with your family, take some time out, this is a very nice place. I have seen the rooms; they are amazing.
Amen.
The ambience is just perfect.
Yeah,
so if you find time, visit Isaac House. So Pasi, we can just go straight into this conversation about money.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this before with you. And I remember one of the first questions I asked you is, why is the money conversation so difficult to have in church today?
I think the money conversation it's not difficult. It's just one-sided, I think. Huh?
Yeah.
I think the church typically talks about money when it comes to giving. But many times the church doesn't talk about money in terms of the many other aspects of it. The Bible says where your treasure is where your heart is. And so that's why Jesus talked about money so much. Because he understood that money is where people spend their day. Money is where people spend their thinking. I mean, but 80% of your day is spent thinking about money and working for money and all those other things. And so Jesus spoke about money more than heaven and hell combined. Many people are always surprised by that. He spoke about money more than faith. And when I tell people that, they're surprised because that's what they hear, or even salvation, you know. And the reason is because he knew when you touch money, then you touch where the person is. And I think as a church, we need to learn how to speak about money because money is, Solomon said, money answereth all things. When you teach your people as a church about not just how to give money, but how to make it, how to save it, how to use it for the kingdom, then I think you do them a great service. When you don't do that, then you do them a great disservice because everybody else is talking about money to them. And the voice of the church is missing. The voice of the Lord is missing.
And I remember one of the things that I have taught in Audacious Influencers is that especially for the young professionals, they spend their whole time, they are either they're 8 to 5, Monday to Saturday is work. So it is looking for money. And then when we come to church on Sunday, it's one of the issues that we will only touch on when, give your offering.
Yes.
So it's a very, very interesting conversation. So should we make money as Christians, do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jesus even gives a parable when he talks about 3 servants who are given money, and one is entrusted with money and he goes and hides it under his pillow. And then when the master comes back, he says, here's your money, And what is he told? He's told, you wicked, you wicked servants. You will be cast out to the place where there's gnashing of teeth. I think God expects us to be stewards because all things come from it. The Bible tells us in Deuteronomy that it is God who gives us the power to make wealth. And that is how he fulfills his covenant with us. So making wealth is actually a God-given gift. And when we don't make wealth, when you read the Proverbs, it talks about the sluggard who will sit and roll over in his bed and wait. He can't even open his mouth to eat, So the Bible doesn't have a very favorable view of that Christian who stays at home and just fasts and prays and waits for money to come to him. I think the Bible teaching is that we must be industrious, we must provide. One of the apostles says the person who doesn't provide for his family is worse than an unbeliever. And so yes, we should think about money. Yes, we should make money. Yes, we should be good stewards because all wealth comes from God and he wants us to multiply it.
So it's okay for me to be wealthy.
Very wealthy. When you look at people like Abraham, and you look at Isaac, and you look, Jacob, those guys were fabulously wealthy. And I don't think that there's no sin in being wealthy. I think when Jesus talked about, the root of evil, the love of money is the root of evil. He didn't say money, because sometimes Christians, we sometimes think money is the root of evil. So we become very suspicious of money. But the Bible never says that money is the root of evil. It says the love of money, and those are two different things.
And you're very, very passionate about financial fitness and stability. You've even written a book on financial fitness.
Yeah, I've written 2. I've written Financial Fitness. I've written another one called Financial Foundations. And I'm very keen on just educating and helping believers to understand how to manage money well.
Why though? Why? That's one of the things I have picked about you. You are very, very intentional about teaching about money. You even have a course on money, couples and money, which is one of the courses that I have benefited in. My wife and I, we've going through that course, very beneficial for us. Why are you so intentional about it?
I think a big part of it is because I believe that when you look at Christians, because of lack of teaching about money, then we almost treat money as this thing that God is not part of. So long as I've given my 10%, then the rest is mine. I can do whatever I want. And the problem then that happens is then that the church ends up in a place where we have little influence in society. We have little influence in the marketplace. When I look at my friends who are of other faiths, Muslims and Hindus, I see them having a big influence in the marketplace. And the reason is because they have a vision for their money that is tied to their faith. And for us who are believers, who know God, who understand the source of all wealth, I think it's a tragedy that we don't actually teach our people to manage money. And the result then is you find that Christians, we don't understand how to manage money. We don't run companies that are multi-generational. And so even as a pastor, I feel we should feel guilty telling people to give, and we've not told them where the money comes from, We haven't made that tie for them. We also have a lot of money laundering in our churches. We have people who are making corrupt money in their office where they are getting bribes. And then they come to tithe and they feel very good about it. And the problem is the pastor never taught them that, you can't do that. That is actually wrong. And so somehow we have to teach the principles behind money as pastors. And I think for me, I'm very intentional about that because I also feel like as Africans, we have tended to become we're dependent. We've become dependents, We're always waiting for people from the outside to come and become donors. Our ministries are always waiting for people from America, from Italy to come and support us. And I think that somebody might almost think Africans are cursed. But actually, we're not cursed. We're just as smart, we're just as hardworking as everybody else. But because we're not educated when it comes to financial literacy, then we end up always becoming dependent.
Yeah.
I think for me, I long for a day when the church in Africa will be a donor church that will be sending missionaries to Russia and to Latin America and to Australia. Because we can, because God has given us the resources to do it. There's nothing special about those people that have the resources.
Yeah.
We just have not been taught how to manage what we have. Actually, I always say we come from the richest continent.
Yeah.
Africa has the most resources of any other continent. So it's very sad that the people with the rich resources, that our money makes other people rich. And then we are there begging for this from the same people to help us.
Yeah.
So I feel like the church has a role in breaking that curse, in breaking that reputation.
Yeah.
And I want to play my part as a pastor in doing that.
Yeah. And you've just talked about us as pastors teaching our congregations on the principles, I believe the fundamentals of money. And you have talked about the fact that the church has become part of the money laundering scheme. I am just wondering, because the church in Kenya is 80%. And so there must be so much money, dirty money, that actually
circulating in our churches. Yes.
We've actually become cleaners of this money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you see, because we don't teach that, then when somebody comes with some money which is not explained, this guy can't earn this in his job.
Yeah.
But he comes and gives you those millions as a pastor. You just say, praise God, and you anoint him and bless him and anoint that corruption, because you really didn't have any part in even teaching him that there are ways to make money without being corrupt.
Yeah.
And yet there are. And because our people don't learn the virtuous way, they only learn the corrupt way.
Yeah.
It's like saying when somebody goes to driving school, if you're taught by a matatu driver how to drive, you will always drive like that. You'll think that's the only way to drive.
Yes.
But if you go to a proper driving school and you're taught this is how you change lanes, etc., then you will learn to drive well.
Yeah.
Because the church is not teaching the proper driving school is not teaching. Then the matatu drivers of the world are teaching our people how to make money by taking shortcuts, by doing all the wrong things. So I think it's important for us as God's people not to be shy of this conversation about money, and to actually equip ourselves and equip each other about that. Even the other thing I notice in church is when people get money, then because they haven't learned from the pastor, then the wealthy people don't even use their resources to train others. So you find there's a wealthy guy in church, but he's not been equipped to actually come and say, it's my responsibility to help the young people in the church to learn how to grow their wealth. So we find that because we're not really intervening and teaching, then we're creating very selfish individuals.
Yeah.
And then we have very poor members who we are not even giving the opportunity to equip themselves.
Yeah. And many people who are in business struggle to remain clean, even Christians, because I have taught in Audacious Influencers that the systems of the world are not wired to favor Christians.
No.
Because there's so much corruption. There's dealings, kickbacks, etc. And you're in business. You are a Christian. You're a pastor, and you're in business.
Yep.
So how do you do it? How do you remain clean?
Exactly.
As a pastor and as a Christian.
Yeah. And I think for me, what I teach people is, first of all, you have to know who you are. You know who you represent. You know where the source of wealth is.
Yeah.
I think when somebody teaches you that, then you start realizing that, first of all, when you read through something like the Proverbs, you'll begin to understand there is righteous wealth, there is unrighteous wealth. The blessings of the Lord make rich, and he adds no sorrow to it. And the blessings of the world make rich. Because sometimes people think if you're not saved, you shouldn't be rich. But actually, no. Even the unrighteous prosper. But the Bible says the blessing of the Lord is the one that has no sorrow attached. And I think when somebody begins to understand that, when you begin to understand that God actually wants me to be wealthy, why? Why would God want you to be wealthy? Because God wants to trust you with his wealth for the sake of others. So that you can become a blessing. He wants to bless us so we can become a blessing. That's what he told Abraham. I will bless you so that then the nations of the earth will be blessed through you.
Yeah.
And so when people begin to understand that, then I have time to be patient. I have time to trust God. I have time to wait on God for divine ideas. I always tell people divine ideas are much more valuable than money. If you give me money today, if you give me the choice between a divine idea and a lot of money today, I'll take the divine idea anytime. Because the divine idea means I can make money, and if that money goes, I can make more money.
Yeah.
if you give me money and I don't have a divine idea, that money will go tomorrow and I won't know how to replace it. And so even just teaching our people to depend on God, to listen to the Holy Spirit, He's the one who gives you a business strategy. Those things will actually help you, help your people to actually be able to make sustainable wealth. So I think for me, it's just to say we need to equip our people. Because the world will tell you the only way to get rich is shortcuts. If the pastor is not preaching and saying, no, there are other ways, and even modeling in the church, being able to point to people and say, come and give your testimony. How have you made it despite all the corruption in your office? And somebody is able to give their testimony. And then you encourage somebody else to say, oh, if this one trusted God, I can also trust God. That's the conversations we must be having, real practical conversations.
Because Percy, how many people even in church can actually stand up and talk about their wealth and say, I mean, this is how I have made my millions.
Yeah, exactly. But we haven't created the culture.
But we haven't created the culture
that allows people to feel comfortable even talking about it.
To talk about it, yeah.
And so I feel like we have to. I think what has happened is then the media also shows us only the corruption. So a young person growing up in Kenya today will say the only way to make money is to be corrupt. Because that's all I see in the papers, that's all I hear about. You know, there are no models of righteous people with wealth. And so for me, that's one of the things I try to do is I get people to share their testimony. I get people to talk about when I see somebody who's succeeding in business, you don't have to be fabulously wealthy. Even with the success you have, come and talk to our people. Tell us how you did it.
I remember the first time you came to our church and you said you're a pastor and you're a wealthy pastor.
Yes, I'm a wealthy pastor.
You could hear a pin drop.
And I'm a wealthy pastor, not because of the people's tithes, because I didn't get wealthy on people's tithes. And actually, I don't know if I told them that day, I don't actually receive an income from Mavuno Church. I'm actually a volunteer at Mavuno Church.
You say that. There were so many shockers because, I mean, people will automatically think because you're a pastor and you said you're a wealthy pastor,
you must have taken money from the...
It has either your church gives a lot or, you know, that's the only way.
Absolutely. But you see, the thing is, I've learned about multiplying income. I've learned about the fact that money makes money. I've learned about the fact that when you give me money, money is not for me to eat. It's whatever money I earn from a salary is supposed to be a seed. And that when my money starts giving birth to other money, that's when I'm actually wealthy, not when I have a salary. See, sometimes people get a salary and they think because I got a pay rise, now I'm rich. Actually, you're not rich. You just have more seeds. If you eat that seed now, you're really poor. So because I've learned those principles, it means that I've been a multiplier all my life. You know, I learned from a very young age how to live on less than I earn. And I always tell people, I've been married now for 26 years. I've lived on one salary. And my wife and I have both earned for many of those years. We always lived on one salary, which meant that we always had one full salary for investing and for giving, being generous. Now, when you have that kind of resource and you start investing it, over time, you will become wealthy. It's not rocket science to be wealthy. You will become wealthy.
Over time. So you have
and you see, that's the other thing people have to be taught is the fact that riches that come immediately, even the Bible talks about the dangers of quick wealth. That when you make money over time, you learn how to make money. The people who get money very quickly, they can't even repeat that. And so also what happens is, over time, my maturity has grown. And so I always tell people, when you're in your 20s and you look at somebody you think of somebody in their 50s or 40s, you think, my goodness, they can't even enjoy the money. I need to get the money now so I enjoy life now. But I tell people, I'm 50. And I'm young. I still have many years to enjoy my wealth, you know, God willing. And so I think it's also teaching people to understand, as Africans, we're the only ones who have a very short-term perspective. We think I need to be rich in 5 years. Go around the world and you'll find people don't think like that. I have an Indian friend, and for him, when he started building his company, he'd take his daughter to that company. And he told me, I'm making the wealth for this girl. Look at Indians. They don't drive around with the first big contract tender he gets a Prado to show guys he has money. He'll never do that. In fact, he buys a small Mureithi. And it's the same one he's taking his family around, and it's the one that he also carries the goods for the shop with. Because he understands that for the business to grow, you have to keep investing back into the business. We're the ones who eat the business as it's trying to grow. And so that teaching our people patience, When you're patient, your wealth will grow slowly, but it will grow sustainably.
Yeah.
And it will become the wealth that cannot be taken away from you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So how did you find yourself in business?
You know, business, I always tell people, business is not an occupation. Business is solving people's problems. If you become good at solving people's problems and getting people to pay you for them, you will find yourself succeeding.
Yeah.
And I've always been good at solving people's problems ever since I was young. I remember even when I was in class, I would always enter a class and ask, what is this teacher's problem? What do they want? And when I discovered what the teacher wants, I would give them what they want and I get an A. So that's what business is. It's discovering what does my client want? What is the need? And when you discover what the need is and you give it to them, you get an A. And the A in this case will come in form of currency.
It's not an occupation.
No, it's not an occupation. All of us are in business.
Yeah.
It's just that we don't know. Even if you're employed, you're in business. The commodity when you're employed is yourself and your hours. You're giving, you're selling your hours to somebody. And if you're not maximizing your product, then you're underselling your product.
Yeah.
And so many people, I find them employed saying, you know, I'm not in business. I say, actually, you are. It's just that you're selling, the commodity you're selling is yourself. And I mean, if you're selling yourself, then you better be very efficient with that.
Yeah.
You better be getting the maximum value for what you're selling, because sometimes you're underselling yourself. So are you investing in that product? Are you giving the best customer service? Because I tell people, when I have a client, I want to make sure that they are satisfied so they can come back tomorrow and order.
Yeah.
But sometimes when I'm an employee, I want to just come to the office and sit in the desk and wait for lunch hour, not understanding I'm actually the commodity here. I want to, if I treat my boss like he's my client, it means I'll give him such service that if he has to think about who to let go in that company, he'll never. For me, he would always say, I'd rather pay this guy more than let him go. I'm always a value-adding person wherever I go. And I think that perspective of solving problems, when you get that mindset, then it means whether it's in your office or whether it's outside, you will always be solving problems. When a person becomes a problem solver, they always look around and they see, what are people struggling with?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm looking around right now, schools have not opened, kids are home, parents are struggling, they don't know what to do with their teenagers, they don't know what to do. Okay, that's a problem. But rather than, for me, I find what happens with many Kenyans is we vent, we complain, the government has not done this, what kind of education ministry, what? But I always tell people, don't vent, invent.
Yeah.
If you want to become a wealthy person, just learn to invent solutions. And the more you invent solutions for people, the more you will find that you're paid for it. So don't enter business. The question when you're looking for a business to start, don't look for a business by asking, what can I make money in? Start by asking, what is the need people have? A serious need that I can answer. And when you learn to answer that effectively and well like nobody else, you'll be paid like nobody else.
And I think it's on the course Couples and Money. You talk about the intersection between your passion, your gift, and your values.
Yeah.
How is that like? How do I get to that point where I actually make my passion profitable for me? I turn my passion into profit, because there are so many, especially for young people. I find that we have so many people who are gifted in so many different areas, and they actually don't use that. Like you're saying, most of us we just vent. There are no jobs. I have a degree, I haven't found a job.
Yes.
And we are not using the passions that God has given us and the giftings that God has given us.
The strengths we have, yeah.
And the strengths.
And we're not solving the problem.
And we are not solving the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, and so for most of the young people, I find that we struggle so much, stuck to the 8 and 5, and we do not end up using in totality what God has given us.
Absolutely.
One of the questions that I have waited to ask you is we've done. I did something on. I called it "You Are a Bag of Tricks," and I was telling people that you have so many things that God has placed in you and put in you, and you can't restrict yourself to just one thing. I am an accountant, and that's all I do from 8 to 5. You
that's
are
our education
a pastor,
system. I can tell you there's almost no business. There's almost no business you can tell. Right now, I'm looking at this guy running this show here. I've run a production business.
You run a production
and a big production business.
Yeah.
So even when people are filming me, sometimes I look at them. I'm like, why are they doing it that way? So there's almost no business.
It's something you've done.
Yeah, there's so many businesses that when I see people doing, I'm like, I've done that.
Yeah. How do you get to do all those things and you have 24 hours like all of us? So how do you get to be a pastor and sit down and talk to me and still run Isaac House and still write books and still do couples and money, all that in 24 hours? How do you?
I think two answers to that question. The first answer is that we all have, as you say, the same number of hours.
Yeah.
And the question is how we use our hours. I think that there are very many time wasters time wasters are horrible. There's too many things that kill out. I realized a long time ago, and I remember learning this in high school, I only need 5 hours a day of sleep. And I'm good if I sleep at the right time. If I sleep very late, I need many hours. But if I sleep before 9, I can wake up at 3. And when I discovered that, I basically slept at 9, woke up at 3 for practically most of my life. And so I'd go to bed when people are still awake. I'd wake up when some of them are still about to go to bed. And then I'd have hours of uninterrupted time to do the things I need to do. And so the first thing is I cut a lot of distractions from my life. I don't own a TV. I haven't owned a TV. Don't remember the last time I owned a TV.
How don't you own a TV?
Why do I need a TV for? What do you need a TV for?
What do the rest of us own TVs for?
Exactly. You know what I tell my children? Because they ask me, how come all their friends have TVs? And they're teenagers. And I tell them, TV is the one occupation I know where all of us, the only guy who's making money in that room is the guy we're watching. Have you ever thought about that? And the guy you're watching, the more you're watching him, the more money he's making.
Yeah.
But you're there, just wasting your time. The hours, you have the same hours of the day as that guy. But because you're using your time watching him is making money as you watch him. He's the only guy in the room making money. The rest of us are just over there wasting the same life that guy has. So that guy is making $1 million just in a day as we are watching him. The rest of us are making zero. So once I realized that, I realized I don't want to be the guy who is watching. I want to be the guy who's on the other side of the camera. I want to be the guy who's being watched. I want to be the guy who's making history.
Yeah.
So I realized when I cut out TV, I cut out a lot of hours.
It's a time waster.
Think about it. I mean, if you're watching 3 hours of TV a day, that is 21 hours a week. That's a full day. What can't you do with a full day of your life? Yeah. So that's one of the things I realized is that there are things that are just time wasters.
Yeah.
I also realized that because when you don't plan your day well, if you don't actually prioritize and plan your things well, then that's going to be a problem. So number one, I just learned you can actually be diligent. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy myself, but even my enjoyment, I plan for it.
Yeah.
You know, I believe in the Sabbath. So one day a week, I relax. I don't work. I don't do, even if you call me with business on that day, for me, I believe that I need to rest. So that day I take off, I do things for me and my family, and I enjoy God, you know?
Yeah.
But then the rest of the time, I work hard. So that's one of the things I learned from a very young. And I'm trying to teach that to my kids as well. But number two is I also have learned to work through others.
Yeah.
You'll never succeed and go far if you just work for yourself.
Yeah.
So one of the key things about leadership is learning to lead through others and learning to equip others and to trust others.
Is that delegation or is that management?
It's both. Delegation is a part of management.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that I need to train people, I need to mentor people, I need to learn to create systems for people, and then I need to learn to release them once I've prepared the systems.
Yeah.
The thing about it, however, is I say to young people, many times when young people are starting, that's why I always tell young people, don't leave college and start a business immediately. If you can work for somebody, if you can get some kind of employment with a good mentor where there are systems, it's helpful because you learn. I mean, you've worked in places where there are systems.
Yeah.
And I'm sure now when you came into church, you found you're able to apply those systems and bring them into the church.
And it was much easier.
Because you had that experience.
Yes.
So I always tell people, if you can, rather than looking for money when you're in your early 20s, look for mentors.
Yeah.
You know, look for people who can actually help equip you. Because that will actually open. I learned how to build systems in the things that I do. So I have many businesses that run, but they're all under, they've got systems. This place has systems. It
doesn't need
staff.
you to be here all the time.
The last time I was here was probably 2 weeks ago. And and before that, I had not been here for 5 months.
Wow.
So I think there's just a place, and it had guests that whole time.
Yeah.
So I think there's a place to be able to understand how to run systems. But I feel like the first thing is, before you can manage a business, you have to learn to manage yourself.
Yes.
If you can't manage yourself and to be able to say, okay, 4 o'clock is when I wake up, because I want to spend time with God, listening to Him for divine ideas for my day, and to understand His Word. I always read through the Bible every year. I want to understand what the scripture is saying to me for that day. Then after that, I want to exercise. You see, that is mastering myself. So the first lesson I say to a young person is you have to learn self-mastery. Self-mastery includes waking up at the right time, sleeping at the right time, eating the right things, exercising, because many young people don't exercise. They think, in your 20s, you have a six-pack just from breathing, from eating chips.
But see, the things you're talking about don't even sound spiritual.
They're not.
Like, you're even talking about, working out and
if God
is mastering your body.
If God wanted us to be spiritual, He'd have made us spirits. He gave us a body. This body is the Lord's temple. The only way I can do the things I do is because I've learned to discipline it. Paul says, I beat my body to make it my slave. So the first thing I have to do is master myself. If I can't master myself, I cannot master my business, and I cannot master other people. So the first thing I have to do is learn to master myself. And so I read. I always say, what are you reading right now as a leader? So I'm always reading something. I have to make time for that. In addition, you remember, and I always tell young people, this is from a guy who has 3 teenagers. I have a wife. So for many single young people, I say, you go home and you sleep. You have nothing else you're doing in the house. But with all those responsibilities, I'm still reading, I'm still planning, I'm still waking up, I'm still working out. And I say, when you're single and young, you really have a fantastic opportunity because you have so many hours to use well. And if you cannot be faithful with little, you'll never be faithful with much. So the first thing is learning to master yourself. And then secondly is now learning to master your business by having systems. And I tell people who are business people, don't work in your business, work on your business. So create the systems for your business.
Don't work in your business.
Work on
your business. Yes. When you work on your business, you create systems, and then the business can just run.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you work in your business, it means when you get sick, you won't get paid.
It can't run.
It can't run.
There's nothing that can happen. Amazing. We have so much to talk about with Pst M. He has a wealth of knowledge, and that is why I want you to join us next time. When we talk about Pst, next time I want us to start on the connection between your wealth and your purpose, because that is one of the things that we miss out in church. So we're going to end there today. Join us next time on Audacious Vybe as we talk about the connection between wealth and money.